you, Taxman, for taking this very important session. And I hope I'm audible to one and all. Really thankful for ensuring that we take this very important topic uh, because CBDT has extended the due date, and there are a lot of challenges amongst the trust relating to this issue. Given this background, how many of you are excited for today's seminar? Can you please type excited in the chat box? I want it to be more interactive, and that's where we want your feedback. How exciting, how much excited are you? Mega is CA Mega, Kalra is mentioning. Okay, there are so 7, 8. Oh, many of you have Venkatesh Bhatt has said excited. Sri Lakshmi Singh excited. Prasad Raguna, very exciting. Thank you. So, how many of you would want to learn to manage your trust and ensure that they are fully compliant without any legal hassles? Please type yes in the chat box. Rohit is saying yes. Again, Venkatesh is Kirtana is saying yes. Okay, great. Prerna Rawat is saying yes. Thank you so much for your interactions. Welcome. I'm CA Premal Gandhi. Really thankful to all of you for coming on a Wednesday evening, spending your time, quality time, and ensuring that you want to learn. It's a great testament that you are here and giving me your valuable time, 90 minutes, so that we could learn something great. Thank you. Really thankful. The obviously the challenges of charitable trust and entities in India is great. I always believe we belong to a privileged section of this society, and therefore there is much more responsibility cast on us. We being passed of the privilege, so there are very many less privileged people in this country, and I'm very sure that if we manage or help them, then this less privileged people will be able to grow, and then only our country will become bigger, will be able to grow. So while we want to grow to the 5 trillion economy and we want to become the third largest country in the world, but we need to help the less privileged people, and that can only happen if these charitable entities grow over a period of time. So would you like to be learning the 5 deadly mistakes that most trusts are doing, which is causing reputational harm to their trustees, as well as causing huge financial penalties to the trust? How many of you are excited for that? So let's look at, is my screen visible? Can you just confirm that?
Yes, sir, visible.
Fair enough. Thank you. So let's look, while we go on with this entire thing, you will be wondering as to who is the seminar for today. The seminar is definitely for chartered accountants and tax practitioners who are working with charitable trust and NGOs. It is also for people who are not currently working but want to work in this environment, charitable trust entities regulations, because a lot of entities have changed. I will, so Megha, I have gone through your query. I will request the participants to wait for a few while before posting their queries. I think majority of your queries could have been resolved during my presentation. If not, obviously we will take the queries at the once I finish that. So I would like to hold on to some point of time. Given that background, we might have some founders or settlers over here also who would like to ensure that their entities are compliant and would like to grow their activities so that they can serve the less privileged people. Let's look at today's agenda. The agenda is obviously to ensure that we learn the fundamentals of NGO compliances, 100% clarity on filing of Form 10A and Form 10B before CBDT's extended guidelines, and the 5 mistakes that you should rectify if somehow the assessees have done or clients have done in the past. Then you have to rectify it before 30th of June 2024. Please do not forget this date. I know time is very short. I mean, we are less than 4 days away from this deadline, and maybe 3 working days only, but then this is what it is. So to that extent, we need to comply with this before 30th of June. While there are only, so before I start, the big promise to me from my side to you, since you have given me a valuable time, is that we will learn the step-by-step guidance on filing of Form 10A, 10B, and so that you can timely file and correctly file it before 30th of June if you need to file it. How to maintain your exemptions without any penalties, and the strategies that will ensure that your obviously your NGOs grow and your operationally also there is efficiency. Hi, I'm CA Premal Gandhi with more than 20 years of experience, second generation professional with 50 years. My dad has been also in practice for now more than 50 years, helping trust NGOs in this practice. I've been blessed to be associated with more than 50 plus industrial NGOs from major industrial players, advising them, consulting them, helping them do audits, compliance, and many other. And each of them are managing nearly 100 crores in donations. So to that extent, been blessed to be working with them. And to be also blessed to write a book for Taxmann. Authored a book for Taxmann, and really thankful to actually to Taxman to have published this book last year. Nilesh Bhai has been a great support every time around when this book, Charitable Trust Cutting Through the Complexity, was published by Taxman. So really blessed and thankful to Taxman once again for this book. I've been blessed to get to be given an opportunity by our alma mater, Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, as well as various state and organizations related to tax in the state of Maharashtra and Gujarat and many other states. So really been blessed to this extent. And obviously the testimonials of this type obviously gives the real dopamine, the kick to take this as a passion and ensure that we grow as a country and ensure that we reach the less privileged. The charitable trust are able to do much better work, and then ensure that the less privileged people are taken care of. So really thankful to such kind of feedbacks. While charitable trust can be of three basic types in India. One is a society registered under the Indian Societies Act. Second, a trust under the Indian Trust Act. Or third, a Section 8 company under the Companies Act only. So there are only three types of this registrations possible, or three different types of entities that are possible. In each of this case, you will have to first get yourselves registered under the respective act. So as I mentioned, under the Societies Act, for if you want to form a society, trust under the Indian Trust Act, or a Section 8 company with the ROC under the Section 8 company. Given that background, what happens is there are many states in India where there is Public Trust Act, which is a state act. Maharashtra, Gujarat, Goa, Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, Orissa, Madhya Pradesh. These states obviously have the local Public Trust Act. Like in Maharashtra, before 1950, when Maharashtra was broken up into Maharashtra and Gujarat, it was called Bombay Public Trust Act 1950. Subsequently to the bifurcation of Maharashtra and Gujarat, it became Maharashtra Public Trust Act and the Gujarat Public Trust Act. In fact, if you read practically all these public trust acts, they're more or less the same. I mean, the basic provisions remain same across majority of the states. Given that background, however, you have to register under those respective states if you are in those states only. If you are not in those states, then those Public Trust Act do not apply to you. The question obviously remains that while a society and a trust has to get registered under the local laws, which is your Public Trust Act, Section 8 need not get registered. However, there are some states like Andhra Pradesh, which is again asking compulsorily to get registered under the Public Trust Act also, even though you are a Section 8 company. The reason or the analogy or the background is that these state acts are public trust acts are state acts, whereas Section 8, which is a Companies Act, is a center act. And basically, under the Constitution, and Center Act will have a prominence over the State Act. That is why Section 8 companies need not get registered with Charity Commissioner, even though where there are public trust acts. However, Andhra Pradesh is becoming one example where they are forcing trust to Section 8 companies to also get registered over there. Once you have obtained this registrations, you are supposed to get registered under the Income Tax Act, and if you are registered under the Income Tax Act and doing charitable activities or partly charitable, partly religious activities, then you can claim some of the benefits under Section 11. The benefits of Section 11 we will take separately, subsequently, but this is the benefit. Now, again, it is contingent on being a registration with the Income Tax Act, which is Section 12AB. Let us first analyze what is the definition of charitable activities. And like in most Indian acts, Section 2 is the definition section, and same thing is there in the Income Tax Act also. Section 215 of the Income Tax Act clearly defines what is charitable purposes or charitable activities. And these are relief for poor, education, medical relief, yoga, preservation of environment, including watersheds, forests, wildlife, preservation of monuments or places or objects of historic and artistic nature. So you have noted the 6 activities which are covered over here. I generally call them, it is a first bucket. There is a reason for claim saying that it belongs to a first bucket. The reason is, one, this 6 activities, which is relief of poor, education, yoga, medical relief, preservation of environment, including watersheds, forests, wildlife, preservation of monuments, places, or objects of artistic and historic nature, are very, very specific in nature. So either you are doing this activity or not doing this activity. If you are doing this activity, you fall within the first bucket. The second bucket is basically the 7th category or the residual category, which is advancement of any other object of general public utility, or I call it a GPU category. As you know, in India, whenever something is residual, invariably it will come with conditions apply. So this comes the 7th one, 215.7, which is G, the second bucket. Advancement of any other object of general public utility has its own conditions. Whereas the first 6 does not have conditions. And that is why I've put into the first bucket, and I'm putting this in the second bucket. If you are in this residual category, and if you are doing any activities which are in the nature of trade, commerce, or business of goods, or nature of trade, commerce, or business of services, for a cess, fee, or any other consideration, please mark my words, doing activities which are in the nature of fair trade, commerce, or business, or any other activity of rendering in the nature of by way of fee, by way of cess, or any other consideration, then there are 2 conditions which apply. And these are 2 provisos which are applicable for GPO category. One, your activity should be in the course of actual carrying out of such advancement. So it has to fulfill within the definition of incidental activities. Secondly, your aggregate receipts from this such activity should not exceed more than 20% of your total receipts. So I will give an example. If assuming you are in the second bucket, which is any other objects of general public utility, and your receipts is suppose say 100 rupees total receipts. Then if you're doing any other activity which is in the nature of trade, commerce, or business for a fee or a consideration, then that activity should not be more than 20 rupees out of that 100 rupees. I'll give you an example. Many times, I know of few trusts where they do a lot of paid webinars, or they come out with some banners, some logos, some t-shirts, and they some brochures, and many other material which is actually sold, or it is in the nature of trade, commerce, or business, and it is for a fee or a price. And the money collected from that is used to do other activities. Like in one of the cases that I am aware of, that money is used for the benefits of upliftment of people working in sexual harassment cases, and they are using that money for the benefit of those people, but they are actually printing t-shirts, making logos, coming out with badges, caps, and selling them, so that that money could cross subsidize that activity. Given that background, but they are ensuring that the receipts from such activities is obviously, as given my example, below 20 rupees. Because the challenge is that out of 100 rupees, if the receipts from such activity crosses more than 20, then the entire amount is not allowed under this GPU category, and therefore it becomes a challenge. I hope. Again, before I wind up over here, this incidental activities is applicable only in the GPU category. The restrictions of these two categories that I mentioned, or two conditions मैंने जैसे कहा था, ये GPU category को ही applicable है. It is not applicable to the first 6 limbs. There is a recent Bombay High Court judgment in case of Bombay Fine Arts, where they are saying that these restrictions do not apply in case of education, medical relief, or relief to poor. But since the facts of the case were related to these 3 activities, and that is why this judgment has come in. However, the same analogy can be applied to activities 1 to 6. And that is why I had mentioned it as a part of the first bucket and not, that was another reason for bifurcating between the first bucket and the second bucket. I hope I have made it very clear over here. Given that background, if you remember, I had said that entities are, what are the different types of entities? What is the charitable purpose which is defined in India? And how do we comply with that? Obviously, you need to register under the Income Tax Act. Once you register, you can get some benefits. The benefits section 11(1) says that if you receive any donations, those donations, if you apply 85% of the income that you receive towards your objects, then the balance 15 is deemed to have been spent. Please mark my words, it is deemed to have been spent. That means there is a deeming fiction. The deeming fiction says that you subject to spending 85% or applying 85% of the income towards your objects, the balance 15 need not be spent or will not be taxable. I get minimum 5 to 10 calls every year from fellow professionals saying that, sir, ये तो standard deduction है. Please, 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 heaven's sake, ये standard deduction नहीं है. Standard deduction is restricted to income from salaries only. There is no concept of a standard deduction in this whole code. You may say, why did I say the code? Use the word code. The sections applicable for a charitable entity are 1023C, Section 11, Section 12, Section 13. And if you are registered under ATG, then ATG. And if you are registered under 35, then 35. These are the only registration provisions applicable for, or the other provisions that are applicable to the charitable entities. Rest entire provisions are common for all the entities, but these are the very specific provisions which are applicable for the charitable entities. Given that background, 1023C, 3A, 3B, 3C, and 3D are entities where there is basically government holding or government revenue of more than 50% or thereabouts. And their conditions are, one of the major conditions is that there should be an ITR file that is applicable for separately. There is separate provisions for that. However, other education and medical entities which are registered under 1023C will either be 1023C 4, 5, 6, or 6A. And if you see in the by the budget amendments of 2022, the provisions applicable for these entities, which is 1023C 4, 5, 6, and 6A, have been made absolutely mirror image of section 11, 12, and 13. Right. So today, whatever provisions are there for section 11, 12, 13, more or less the same provision, mirror image applies to 1023, 4, 5, 6, and 6. So for our discussion today, we will restrict it to 11, 12, and 13. Given that background, most of us will remember that on the midnight of 30th of June 2017, one of the greatest legislation in the Indian economy, GST was passed and made implemented from 1st of July 2017. The parliament itself did a unique thing, a historic thing, by keeping the parliament open on the midnight of that day. And we all welcomed GST. Similar thing has happened in case of a charitable entity on or in the midnight of 31st of March 21. The entire provisions were changed. The entire huge change has happened during that place, but somehow it has got unnoticed. Somehow it has not been propagated so much. Somehow it has not come to the light of people so much. And there have been huge lapses that have happened. So the earlier provision applicable were 12AA. If you see in the 1990s, there was a section 12AA, 12A. In 12A, what they were saying is that if you're a charitable entity, you are supposed to get registered to claim the benefits under section 11. Once you register, you will be granted a certificate, and that certificate will be valid for 5 years. You will have to again go for renewal every 5 years. And majority of the practitioners will remember there was those were the days of manual records. So there was a register which was kept, open register which was kept, where actually everything related to the trust was put in. They were putting the name of the trust, the name of the trust, directors, trustees, whatever, all those things were being. And when was it registered, the registration number, and when will it be due for renewal, and all those things. And once it is renewed, similarly, the details used to be mentioned. The income tax department went for digitization somewhere around 2005, 2006. And that is when we started filing the e-filing of returns. Then early 2012-13, the amendment was brought in where the 12A was amended by 12AA. In 12AA amendment they brought in, they said that once you are registered and if you are given a certificate, it will be valid till perpetuity unless it is revoked by the assessing officer, which is CID exemption in that case. So you don't have to go for a renewal every 5 years. Once if you have a 12AA or an ATG or a 35(1) or a 1023C, it will be valid for entirety, perpetuity, unless it is revoked by the assessing officer. And obviously the manual records were disbanded. So obviously, if you see, there is a very beautiful document done by, or a performance audit done by CAG in the early 2021, and they have given their report in August 22, which was tabled in the Parliament on 16th August 2022. It is available in public domain. However, whenever I'm sharing my PPT, I will also share that document to Taxmann and it can be circulated amongst the participants. It's a 200 odd page document where CAG has analyzed about 7,000 trusts and has come out and they've analyzed how these trusts were claiming exemptions and what causes were being happened and how many tax lapses were happening in this entire thing. They've come out with a huge report. My sincere request to all the participants who are right now hearing us, please go through the summary, the executive summary, as well as the summary of recommendations, which is roughly 7-8 pages in each of the case, both the cases. And so total about 100, total about 15 pages only of this report. It will give you an clear guidance as to why this government has brought in so many changes and what was the regulation registration for this bringing these amendments that have been coming over the last couple of years. And it will also give you guidance as to what more is coming in the pipeline. Obviously, the challenge is that they have come out with scathing remarks in that report, and that is why the government took harsh measures on it. And obviously brought in a section 12AB on 1st of April 2021, where every trust, society, or a Section 8 company which was in existence on 1st April 21 had to compulsorily register. They were also all new trusts which are registered, trust society or a Section 8 company, obviously will have to, if it is new, then it will have to compulsorily go on for registration under 12AB now. Once you register under 12AB, there are only two types of registrations which are given. So the form that you are filing at the time of registration will be Form 10A. Please mark my words. The form that you have to fill for registration is Form 10A, capital A for Ahmedabad. And you will be given a, so Form 10A will also apply for registration if you're doing a registration under 1023C, or if you're doing a registration under 12AB, or if you're doing a registration under 35(1) or under the ATG. Same form has to be used. This form is available when you log in into the income tax portal through your user ID and password and go to the view file e-forms, you will get this form. The form is quite simple and you can fill in the name, PAN numbers and name of details of trustee, their PAN number, their Aadhaar number, and last 3 years receipts and all this. In column number 3, there is row number 3, you have to select a code. And this code is very, very important because your registration will depend on the type of code selected. Given that background, typically you have only two types of registration. One, regular registration, the other provisional registration. In case of regular registration, you have those trust societies or Section 8 companies which were registered as on 1/4/21. Please mark my words. Those which were registered under the erstwhile 12AA or under the ATG or under the 1023C or under 35(1). If you are registered as on 1/4/21, then you will be given registration, regular registration for 5 years. You have to obviously select the code 12, subclause 1, subclause AC, subclause 1. In case of 12 registration, similar in case of 1023C, similar in case of ATG also. There is no condition furthermore in this section, except that you have to go for a renewal of this section every 5 years. And your application for renewal, again in Form 10A, will have to be made 6 months prior to the end of the year in which your registration is getting over. So typically, 4.5 साल के लिए आपको at the end of 4.5 years, you have to, your application should be filed for renewal. As I mentioned, renewal के लिए भी Form 10A ही भरना है. So in our office, we say that typically your renewal application should start minimum 9 months, because so that you get 3 months to get all the data from the client, you fill in the forms, you submit, so that you don't miss this deadline of 4.5 years. The other type of registration is provisional registration. Provisional registration is a registration. So if you are not in existence on 1/4/21, if you were not registered under 12AA or 1023C or Section 80G or 35(1), then you will get a provisional registration. Or if you're a new trust, then you will also get provisional registration. The provisional registration will be valid for only 3 years. However, it will come with two more conditions. One, the moment you start your activities, which is whatever activities which are in furtherance of your objects, then you have to file a Form 10AB. Mark my word. If you have a provisional trust, you got your order, you filed a Form 10A, got the provisional registration, the order will come in Form 10AC. If you look at the Form 10AC, it is saying order for provisional registration. And in the condition specified, you have to mention, you have to intimate the income tax department when you start your activities. So the form that is specified for mentioning or intimating your activities is Form 10AB. You have to file. So if you start your activities or say on 1st of April 24, then within a period of maximum 6 months, you are supposed to file a Form 10AB. So on or before 30th September 24, you are supposed to file a Form 10AB. Once you file a Form 10AB, the department, income tax department, has 6 months to either accept your application or reject your application. The CIT exemption is the person in your respective area will be the person who will analyze, or principal CIT will analyze, will go through your documents, will also go through your supporting evidences to see whether your activities are obviously of genuine nature, and they will be verified. He may send you an annexure of hearings may happen, either physical or virtual. And all documents will need to be given in support of your state activities. And then on the basis, he will either accept your application or reject your application. If you have not started your activities, right, then before end of 2.5 years, you still have to go for a renewal again in Form 10A. So these are the only two conditions which are specified in provisional registration, which is for 3 years. Given this background, as I have said, when a Form 10 is to be filed, when Form 10AB is to be filed. I have specifically put in this green with 3 months for some reason, which is till 30th of June 24. I will come to that subsequently, but I have already covered this, that if you are a registered trust on 1/4/21, then you will give a final registration. Within 3 months, the application you may pass. And so while it was earlier mentioned 3 months, but now it has been extended to 6 months. So they have the 6 months time frame to either accept or reject your applications, and you will be granted 5 years validity certificate. As I mentioned to you, that comes with only one condition, that you have to go for a renewal at least 6 months prior to the period in which you have to go for a renewal. Within that 6 months, obviously, once you apply, genuineness of your activities and compliance requirements may be asked under the law. All material may be required by the principal CIT or CIT, and he may pass an order. He definitely has to pass an order either accepting or rejecting your application. And again, it will be valid for 5 years from the date in which application is made. In case of provisional trust, I have already covered this aspect, that you need to apply. If you have started your activity, then you have to apply within the 6 months period in Form 10AB, stating that you've commenced your activities, and obviously the genuineness of activities and compliance of documents, including documentation, will be reviewed by the assessing officer, which is CIT or PCIT, and then your renewal will be extended by 2 years. Furthermore, 2 years. That means you are originally given a provisional registration for 3 years. Once you, within that period, whenever you started your activities, you intimated to the department saying that we have commenced activities via Form 10AB. They will accept. If they accept it, then your registration, which was for 3 years, will be further extended for 2 years. So you will typically get it for 5 years, similar to the ones like regular assessees. In any other case, like if you're doing a merger of trust or demerger of trust or amalgamations, or if you're going in for winding up, then you have to go for registrations within a period of 1 month from the end of the day in which you got this application. And again, it will be, if you're doing a demerger or a merger, then it will be provisional, again subject to 3 years. So that is why it covers any other cases. Given this background, let's analyze why I've been saying commencement of activities, and that is what you need to intimate to the department. And you will be saying, what is this commencement of activities? And why is it relevant for Form 10AB? Basically, commencement of activities are actually the activities that you're doing towards the furtherance of objects of your trust once it is incorporated. What happens in Form 10B will be that you will have to substantially give evidence in your application itself towards what activities you've done. You have, to the extent that you have documentation available, you should submit in that application itself when you upload it on the portal. So both Form 10A and Form 10AB have to be uploaded onto the portal only. What I will want you to be very clear is, this provisions came on 1/4/21, right? And any applications done between the period of 1/4/21 to 27th of May 2021 all were approved on 27th of May 21. Each one of you will remember that the department closed down the old portal in on 28th of May 21. And subsequently, the new portal was started somewhere around July 21, where we all faced challenges and the due dates were comparatively extended. If you have filed any of the forms in the old portal before 28th of May 21, those forms as well as those registration data has not been migrated to the new portal. However, if you have filed any Form 10A or Form 10AB, or you have received any certificate in Form 10AC, then those certificates are available in the new portal if you have filed after in July 21 or subsequent. So when you are filing these documents, you need to attach photos, videos, or any other media reporting. I will also share with you a real life example over here of one of our client where we had filled in a Form 10AB, where the trust was incorporated for medical relief. They had done a blood donation camp, a vaccination camp, and these are real life photos which were also attached along with the application in Form 1080 and submit. So similar things you could also do. So this is just a example in this case. While the forms we have been speaking on, Form 10A and Form 10AB, the original form came in effective from 1st April 21, was extended by as to 31st of August 21 by White Circular number 12 of 2021 because of the challenges of the portal, and was further extended to 31st of March 22 because of the challenges of the portal. Subsequently, this was further extended post facto to 27th 11/22, where by circular number 22 of 2022. Then a circular number 6 dated 24th May 23 was issued, where they extend a lot of representations were made by a lot of people, including trustees, chartered accountants, professionals, tax practitioners, saying that huge challenges are being faced by a lot of our community people, and people did not understand the provisions thereof. Therefore, this was extended for the to 30th of September 23. Unfortunately, when the intent of the department was to extend it to 30th September 23. However, the intent and the draftsman were not on the same line. When the circular number 6 of 2023 was drafted, extension was granted for registration under 12AB, under 1023C, under 35(1). However, no extension was granted for ATG. Whether that was intentional or otherwise, we don't know, but the same was not given. So the challenge was that any trust which had commenced activities prior to for it when they were going for ATG registration specifically, those who had commenced activities earlier and had not filed a Form 10AB within that 6 months period, or had delayed in filing of that Form 10AB beyond that 6 months period, or had not been able to register even after that 2.5 period was there, or had filed the application in Form 10 for renewal after the 2.5 periods, were either getting rejections or their applications were kept on hold. That is where again a lot of representations were made. I mean, the same logic, Form 10A was extended to 30th of 22. It was also extended to 30th of September 23 in cases of 12AB, ATG, 12AB filings as well as 35(1) as well as under 1023C. However, ATG was not covered under this 10AB also. That is where a lot of representation was done. And in a relief measure dated circular dated 25th of April 24, circular number 7 was issued saying that, okay, we have heard the lot of representations and there we want to give a relief measure. What is the relief measure given? The relief measure is that if you had a valid registration under the respective section, which is 1023C or a 12AB or 12AA, or under ATG or 35(1), and somehow you did not file under 12AB, then you can make the application under Form 10A on or before 30th of June by selecting the code, as I mentioned, 1023C1 or 12AB, subsection 1, A, subclause AC, subclause 1, or ATG or 35(1), and you will be granted registration effective from AY 22-23. That is provided you had a registration under the respective sections, which was valid as on 1st April 21. That was the first. Secondly, for all those people who did not have registrations as on 1/4/21, either in 12AA or a 1023C or ATG or 35(1), and have subsequently explored the option of taking registrations. Obviously, then you are given provisional registrations. If you have commenced your activities, then you are within the period of 6 months if you are supposed to file those Form 10AB. So those people who did not file the Form 10AB or have delayed in filing of Form 10AB and made that application. However, if the application is not processed till that date, the delay will be condoned. But if the application has been rejected, then you can still file a Form 10AB on or before 30th of June 2024. And you will be granted the registration back from the year in which you started your activity. So if you started your activity in AY 22-23 but forgot to file your Form 10AB, and now even if you file it before 30th of June, you will be given from AY 22-23. Or if you are filed delayed and the application was rejected, still you will be granted the similar thing. The reason is the majority of the cases got rejected because under section 119(2)(b), the assessing officer, which is CIT exemption, they did not have the power to condone the delay. Once you filed after 6 months, then he did not have the power to condone the delay, and that is why he was rejecting the application for conversion of provisional registration to final registration. However, if you file the respective forms now, that delay will be condoned and you will get your respective section registration back from the respective date. In those cases where you have already filed the Form 10AB and this has not been rejected, the department is very clear that those delays will be also condoned. Given that background, there was an interactive meeting on 3rd of June 2024 in Mumbai, where the principal CIT of the exemptions Delhi, Mr. Monish Verma, and CIT exemptions Delhi, Mr. Vipul Agarwal had come down, where a few trusts like Tata Trust were called representatives from Tata Trust, Tata Sons, KJ Somaya Trust, Kokila Bin Ambani Hospital, Premal Trust, and Reliance Foundations were called, and a few practitioners, including me, were called to discuss the challenges being felt. There is a challenge over here that while if you were in activities have started prior to 21, the Form 10AB for filing of commencement of activities is not getting filed for AY 22-23. They had in that interactive meeting said very clearly that we are aware of this issue. We will come out with some clarification before 30th of June 24, being the last date. However, while we are speaking today, there is no clarification. I have spoken to some senior CIT exemptions, and they have said that in those cases, you may file at this point of time any assessment year 22-23 or 23-24, whatever they are allowing you to file. And when your application comes for us, by that point of time, some clarification would have come in and we will take a lenient view on that aspect. Given that background, furthermore, as I have already said that if you have applied, you had failed to file a Form 10AB on or before any of these earlier days and subsequently applied for registration, however, taken a provisional registration, right? So if you were in existence as on 1/4/21, but by mistake at the time of selection of courts, you have either taken, in case of section 12(1), subclause AC, subclause 6, and been given a provisional registration, which is again valid for 3 years, then you have an option to surrender this and apply for a Form 10A, where you will be granted 5 years, provided you had a registration as on 1/4/21 under 12AA or 80G or 35(1) or 1023, as the case may be. So you would have to, in those cases, you have to surrender your provisional registration and get the fresh registration under 10A filed by filing a Form 10A in the respective section. These are real life. So let's look at what the 5 mistakes or deadly mistakes most people have done till now, most trusts have done. These have actually been tabulated from our analysis of various cases that have been referred to us and most cases that we've seen across. That, as I have mentioned, that in Form 10A, when you have to file the documents and the scrutiny notices or hearing notices come up, and there are a lot of errors in documentation, and majority of the time, the genuineness of activities, the assessees are not able to satisfy or substantiate their documents with for activities that they've done, and which leads to a cancellation. And obviously, 30% tax rate is applied. In fact, your registration is cancelled. And if you're deregistered, and then automatically Section 115 TD gets applied. Section 115 TD says that the fair market value of your assets minus the fair market value of your liabilities will be taxed at 30%. The challenge becomes very big if you have immovable properties, because the fair market value of the immovable properties will be far huge. Furthermore, if you are an assessee in default, obviously the trustees can be prosecuted for non-compliance. Obviously, at times this can lead to personal financial losses, and obviously what we have seen across at times is that the trustees are generally people who are having some standing in the society, and therefore at times this could lead to huge loss of reputation. I will take this type of each type of mistakes with a case study, which will help you understand the challenges that are being faced. These case studies are real life case studies from the matters that have been referred to us. The names have been changed, and this name have no relevance. They are a figment of our imagination and do not have resemblance to any name, person, or activity till date. Let's analyze this with a case study. Virat Foundation has been given a provisional registration on 10th of March 2022. They had filed a Form 10AC, and they had taken selected code wide subsection 6, and therefore a provisional registration was granted. They also applied for ATG, and ATG was given on the same date to them. They started their activities much prior to 10th March, but since they applied for 10th March, they should have ideally filed the Form 10AB within 6 months, which is on or before of 10th August 22. However, they filed on 1st September 23, the Form 10AB for conversion of provisional registration to final registration. The main trustee, the department sent a notice as a hearing, as I said, for conversion of provisional registration to final registration. The main trustee, Mrs. AVK, was called, and she said that no, we have started activities from FY 22-23 itself. And on this basis, the department cancelled their registration because they did not apply for conversion within 6 months. Furthermore, exit tax was applied and a demand of 50 crores was created. The challenge is, this was the live case which is done. However, White Circular number 7, dated 25th April 24, they can file a Form 10AB and give obviously AY from AY 23-24, the registration will be valid and they can continue with their activities. However, once they get, obviously a notice will be issued to them, they can give the documents, and the registration will be restored. And then obviously 154 application can be made for rectification of this demand. So to that extent, circular number 7 helps them. And maybe this similar thing has happened in many of the cases. So many of the trustees have done the same mistake in a lot of cases that I have come across. And I get regularly phone calls from every professional having similar mistakes in the case. Furthermore, since Virat Trust was in the state of Maharashtra, they had not filed change reports and many other documents with the Maharashtra Public Trust Act, Charity Commissioner. They were held for local laws compliance, non-compliance, so that they will have to live. This is of prime importance. The challenge is that in October 22, September 22, and October 22, the Supreme Court came out with 2 judgments in the case of New Noble Education Society versus CIT and Ahmedabad Urban Development Corporation versus few of the Supreme Court in its right earnest has said that it has come time that we revise and revisit our own judgments, and they've overturned their own judgments by way of Surat Atmils, Oxford Education, and many other judgments. Few takeaways from those judgments have been that in case of education or medical relief, you have to either charge at cost plus nominal profit. They've given instances where how to compute the nominal profit. They've not defined it. They've said it will be again case to case basis, but that is what they've defined the principles of determining notional profit. Furthermore, they have said that once a trust is registered, they are supposed to comply with the local laws also. And that way, the act was amended to incorporate that if the trust or the society or the Section 8 company does not comply with the local laws, then the CIT exemption has the powers to deregister the trust also. So obviously, these judgments were not retrospective, they were prospective enough. And therefore, this has caused great upheaval amongst various trusts over here. In fact, to that extent, that where that you have a trust which is partly religious, partly charitable, especially in case of Rajasthan. Rajasthan has a act called Rajasthan Devasthan Act, which is applicable where registrations are supposed to be taken by temples, and those trusts which were doing partly charitable, partly religious, and doing having temples as their registrations, they were supposed to get registered under Rajasthan. Their registration applications were rejected by the income tax yearly on the ground that you did not have a registration under the local law. And in most cases, they were rejected, or the assessees were asked to withdraw their applications, take the registrations, and then reapply. So this is why it become this type of deadly mistakes needs to be revised on or before 30th of June 24. Second type, all existing trusts, as I mentioned on 24, have to, as on 1421, have to apply, and they are given for 5 years. If you selected any wrong codes by which you got provisional registration at times, since your activities have already been started in the previous years, especially in case of ATG or otherwise, these would have been your exemptions would have been denied, and there'll be a significant amount of tax liabilities which have been levied. Let's look at this with a live case study. This trust, Mata Trust, was incorporated in 2020 and granted a 12AA registration on 20th of March 2020. This date is actual date. This happens to be the last working day in 2020 on 20th of March. In fact, everybody will remember कि 22 March 2020 को हम सब ने थाली बजाई थी. So this happens to be the last working day prior to the days we were officially closed for holidays, and they got their 12AA registration on that day. Subsequently, obviously, the healthcare facilities in India were challenged. Huge deluge of patients, COVID-19 hit. These people continued their operations. The trustees managed to take loans and did created household in-house dispensary, radiology labs, and whatnot canteen to ensure that the hospital was running and patients could be taken care of. However, on 1421, they were not advised to take registration under the new provisions of 12AB, ATG, and therefore they did not take the registrations. Subsequently, the audit reports and the ITRs were filed using the old data. And obviously, they were claiming the benefits of Section 11. While demand has been standing in their respective portals, because once you file a wrong form 10, the audit report in form 10B or BB, or if your ITR is defective, effectively the exemption granted under 11.1 is not given to you, and the entire amount is charged at the rate of maximum marginal rate of 30% plus surcharge plus cess. The portal CPC itself creates the demand and keeps it on the portal. Furthermore, the trust could not find the change reports, and therefore they were non-compliant because of that also. In these cases, obviously, circular number 7 comes to their rescue, and they can file the Form 10AB, Form 10A, taking benefit of the registration from 1421 because they were registered under 12AA, and they will be given registration from 1421, and their audit reports, I mean, they can revise their ITRs. And obviously, once their rectification, the registration is granted, they may have to apply for 154 for rectification of the demands. This is second time of a mistake that most trusts have done. Third time, let's look at most newly registered. So the trusts which are registered, trust, society, or section in company which is registered after 1421 were supposed to get apply for provisional registration and start commencement of activities. And once you have commenced your activities, you are supposed to file a Form 10AB within 6 months period. If you have delayed or not filed a Form 10AB, then your deadline or your registration was getting cancelled, and with retrospective cancellations. Obviously, you were charged at 30%, the taxes applied were maximum marginal rate and 30% plus surcharge plus cess. Let's an example. Lathi Trust incorporated in April 22 to provide scholarship to students of weaker sections and medical care who could not afford it. It simultaneously also prints a magazine to give an opportunity to boys and girls to write articles as well as corporates to give advertisements and souvenirs in that magazine. Obviously, it was given a provisional registration effective from June 22. It started collecting donations on Independence Day on 15th August 22. Secondly, it started applying the income from the date of 2nd October, which is Gandhi Jayanti, to various various financial assistance to various students. So these two dates become very, very important. Since you have a provisional registration, you have to file a Form 10AB from the date of commencement of your activity, and therefore the date of commencement of activity becomes very crucial. The department has always been taking the date you start applying your income as the date on which you start your activities. Furthermore, if your date of collecting donations and date of applying donations income is not, there is no significant variation within that period, then it does not apply. You may take from the date of application of the income as the date and file within that 6 months period. You may apply for Form 10AB for conversion from provisional to final registration. However, if you have collected donations and not applied them, then you have a challenge. In this case, 2nd October 22 was the date in which they started the activities. They should have ideally filed the Form 10AB on 1st April 23. However, they filed it on 31st of March 24. Delay was there of more than 12 months plus. Obviously, the audit reports were filed with for all those periods, ITRs were filed, claiming benefits of Section 11. The registration was cancelled, and since there's a delay, there is demands also created in the system. In this cases also, circular number 7 comes to the rescue. So you may file a Form 10AB from AY 22-23, 23-24, sorry, and the registration will be granted retrospective. The provisional registration will be converted to final registration from AY 23-24 in this case of Lathi. And therefore, whatever demands have been created can be rectified. Let's look at the fourth deadly mistake that most people have done. Obviously, you are supposed to maintain documents. And as I've been saying, there is huge challenges on the documents of activities done or the collections. In fact, after the CAG report came in, White Circular number 94 dated August 22, the department prescribed the documents that you have to maintain under Rule 17AA. Before that day, there was no specified documents which are specified which the charitable trust have to maintain. In fact, for 44AB, where tax audit, there is a section 44AA which mentions that respective books of accounts that you have to maintain. However, nothing was prescribed till August 22. The amended Rule 17AA, White Circular number 94, August 22, saying that if you are receiving donations, then you have to maintain the name, address of the donee. Apart from that, obviously collect any of the documents, which is your PAN, Aadhaar, voter ID card, passport, election card, or a ration card. Furthermore, they also said that you have to, in case of a loan or borrowing, you have to maintain further documents. Furthermore, if you are applying any income, you have to take the name and address of the vendor that you're making the payment, or name and address to the payment you're making the pay. They did not mention that you have to collect documents like PAN, Aadhaar, passport of those people. But what they also said was that Section 11 was amended to bring in a provision that explanation 4 was inserted, where they said that for 40A3 and 40A1A shall apply. So what does 40A3 say? That you cannot make payments beyond 10,000 in cash. If you make the payments beyond 10,000 in cash, then it will be disallowed. Similarly, if the provisions of 40A1A shall also apply. So if TDS provisions apply, then you are supposed to deduct TDS. If you have to deduct TDS, you have to take the PAN number. Otherwise, if you don't have PAN number, then 206 will apply. The higher rate of tax will apply. So if you are making a payment which triggers section 194, like payment to professionals or payment for commission or payment for rent or payment to contractors, then you have to deduct TDS, and therefore you have to obviously take the PAN number over here. So all these documentations was prescribed under Rule 17AA. Majority of the people have not been able to do it. Furthermore, since it was done effective from August 22, what is to be done for the period April 22 to the August 22? There is no clarity over there. Dhan Charitable Trust was doing activities from 1st April 22, having a valid registration on 12AA, never applied for ATG. So then in 21, they thought that let's apply for a registration for ATG. They applied on 31st of May 21, wide ATG 4, ATG subclause 5, subclause 4, that is a provisional registration section. They applied it, and a Form 10AB was filed on 30th of September, saying that they've started the activities. During the notice, the trust CIT mentioned that activities have started, but was going on from 2016 and not from 30th of September as mentioned in the 10AB. And therefore, this registration was wrong and it was rejected and registration was cancelled. In these cases, circular number 7 ideally does not apply, but as I mentioned recently, when I was speaking to a CIT exemption, he said that, sir, why, if you have applied for a provisional registration and you have got a rejection or a Form 10, you want to file a Form 10AB for conversion, even for periods prior where your activities had started earlier, because they brought in they substituted clause 80, clause 5, subclause 4 with saying that if your activities have commenced, then you go for a final registration. So while the portal till date does not allow you to register while selecting AY 22-23, the CIT very clearly mentioned that, sir, you may apply 23-24. Whenever your hearing, it comes up for hearing, we will take it up in those cases at that point of time. So to that extent, while circular number 7 does not apply in this case, however, you may apply in Form 10AB to the limited extent that you may select AY 23-24 or whatever it allows you to apply. So this has been the 4 different type of mistake that most trusts have done. 5th deadly mistake that most trusts have done is that, as I had mentioned, if you remember, you are allowed to do incidental activities in the second bucket. However, there is a restriction. 2 explanations have been given that it has to be towards the principally towards the activities of the trust. And secondly, your receipts from such incidental activity cannot be more than 20%. In a lot of cases, there have been violations for these 2. People have not been able to comply with these 2 provisos. And obviously that has caused their applications have been rejected, and which is causing, tax has been applied at the maximum marginal rate of 30% plus surcharge plus cess, and which is actually the deathbed for this trust, because they would have already spent the money or applied the money towards the object of the trust, whereas they don't have any money left for payment of this taxes along with interest and penalty. Jasprit Foundation. So let's take this case with the case study. Jasprit Foundation started from 1st April 22. Obviously, they had 4 main trustees, which is Handrick, Rohit, Adarsh, and Nilima. They had applied for a provisional registration, applied for conversion of this provisional registration, going on a compliance. Their primary objective was to start an academy for rugby players in India. Subsequently, the trustees were, since they were influential people, they thought, let's have a charity match with the celebrity friends of theirs. And this charity match will be, uh, tickets will be given. Jasprit will obviously collect money. The tickets were priced at 5,000. So that they can use that money for using it towards the academy of the rugby players. The trustees, however, knew that since they are in the GPO category, there is a restriction of that 20%. However, this activity from these activities, the income that would be generated from these activities would far exceed that 20% criteria of that, which is the proviso 227. However, they still did it. The registration was cancelled. This type of mistake is not covered under circular number 7. And because circular number 7, very as we have discussed, covers only those scenarios where either you had an existing registration and you could not apply, or you delayed in filing of those applications, or you have filed your existing trust, but by mistake you opted for a provisional registration. All these cases are not covered. All these type of cases are not covered, and you cannot take the benefit of circular number 7 in these cases. So what we've been discussing, what is the challenge if you have a delayed in registration or your registration gets cancelled. Obviously, it becomes converted into a non-charitable one. Your exit tax get triggered at the maximum marginal rate, and the challenge is that trust becomes an AOP, and under 164(2), it is taxed at the maximum marginal rate of 30% plus surcharge plus cess. Right. Given this background, I hope most of you would have understood the provisions. Obviously, how many of you want me to do some recap? Can you please type yes in the chat box or me in the chat box? I mean, I would like to make it interactive so that Manish is saying yes. Anybody else? You want me to do a recap? Ankit, Sri Lakshmi, yes. Venkatesh, good. So all of you want a recap, right? So I have explained when Form 10A is applicable, when Form 10AB is applicable. Sumilji, 5 big mistake recap. The 5 mistakes have been basically either you have not done your documentations, or there have been challenges in that documentation, or challenges in you have not filed the Form 10A correctly if you were registered prior to 2021, or even if you were registered but you went for provisional registration, or you are a trust which is formed after 21, took the provisional registration and were supposed to file Form 10AB when you commenced your activities. However, you did not go for, you have either delayed in filing of Form 10AB or you've not filed Form 10AB. In all those cases, you need to take the benefit of this circular. So while it has become very imperative, as I've been saying, that the provisions itself post 1421 have undergone a dramatic change, and therefore you need to be updated. Income tax amendments have to be taken care of, and any delay in filing or incorrect registrations will lead to a retrospective cancellations. And as I've been saying, since you would have already applied the entire income, if your exemptions are denied, there'll be a financial strain, and obviously you will have a significant tax burden. You will lose your tax exemption status. So please ensure that you are compliant, and you do a thorough documentation, take timely action to avoid all those challenges. And obviously you can rectify the 5 types of mistakes that I've said by filing forms on or before 30th of June 2024. Given that background, obviously you have 2 options. That one, keep on continuing and be ignorant, face the dangers alone, do how manage your trust or your clients the way you've been doing. Because gone are the days, unfortunately. My sincere request, if you're doing any trust or any activity for pro bono or for not charging the clients properly, please ensure that you can charge the clients properly, and you ensure that you keep updated of these recommendations, because the challenge is that today NAFRA is not uh, is going hammer and tongs behind chartered accountants for for attestation functions that they've done. While I always say, and I know charity begins at home, I always say that I do charity when I am home, but I don't do charity when I'm at an office. So I suggest very clearly that if you're doing anything for pro bono or not charging people, clients, because when you don't charge clients, you will always take the shelter that since I'm not charging or charging less, then I need not give the full service. But if you charge properly, then you cannot take that benefit. And if you do not want, if you genuinely want to do some genuine charitable activities, once you charge normally, please, you may do the charitable activities the next day out of that same money. Nobody stops you from doing the charitable activities. But please charge it so that you will not take the shelter of not charging properly and then not do a proper job. And if you do such things, then obviously NAFRA will not spare you. NAFRA will not give you an opportunity like this. So you can keep on facing your dangers alone, which is your first option. Or the second option is hiring an expert opinion, obviously, who can help us navigate through this tough phase. Obviously, experts are there like us who will be more than happy to assist you, and you may take the help, obviously. So this is the basic provisions which are applicable for registrations and the other challenges that are being faced. I'm pretty sure you would have analyzed the various types of mistakes that probably your trust or your clients would have gone through. And I'm pretty sure that you will now take care to ensure that you either rectify these mistakes on or before 30th of June 2024. I know there are very few days left, 3 or 4 days left, but please ensure that you do this so that in the case of your trust or your assessee or your client, this is rectified. Obviously, if you have any doubts, you are now free to put it on the chat, and I'll be webinar on this chat box, and I shall take them all the questions. Obviously, my coordinates are there over here. You may, I mean, my phone is never switched off. However, I tell my team that I pick up phones when I'm in office because that is when I'm the boss. But once I reach home, obviously somebody else becomes the boss, and then I'm not allowed to pick up my phones. So if in case I'm not picking up your phones, then you can understand the reason that why I'm not being allowed to pick up phones. But please ensure, please be careful. You may send me a message or a WhatsApp message, and I'll try and respond to your query as soon as possible. Thank you. I'm ready to answer all the questions, all your doubts which you may have. I think we have about 10, 12 minutes, and I'll be more than happy to answer them. How do we go about for the questions? The admin may help. Should I read from the um, chat box itself? Hello? Somebody from Taxmann can guide us. Should I read from the chat box itself? I will start reading it. If that if the 12th day registration was rejected by CAT exam early and then we filed appeal before ITT and appeal 2 was heard. Now taking the birth window, can we apply final ATG before 30th order of ITT yet to come? So ma'am, you can apply for an under circular number 7. And if you get the registration after that, and till that point of time, your ITT order will definitely not come. But if it comes, then fine. If it does not come, you can withdraw your application before the ITAT. Under which limb Gaushala will come? Rohit says typically it will come under if you are not doing any other incidental activity where you are selling cow dung or some other, then it will come under animal welfare. But if you're doing, majority of these Gaushalas are now doing activities of the sale of products or services, and that is where you are hit by GPO, you come under 215 subclause 7. Since only 85% of subgrant to other charitables are allowed as an expenditure, they say how do you utilization of balance 15%? Madhab, your question, if I've understood correctly, you are saying that under 11 to, if you have received a voluntary donation or a voluntary grant and you have given it to another registered entity, while you would have spent 100%, you are allowed only 85% as under the computation mechanisms. The challenge is that, yes, you will be restricted to 75% only. So to that extent, there is no remedy to this. You will be hit by this provision, and therefore, the maximum that you can do is you will be granted. You can take the benefit of 85% only. Just 1 minute. Let me. If we surrender provision ATG certificate MVS is which form to file, a form 10A or 10AB, also which under subsequent code we have to apply for 5-year exemption. MVA, if I understand your question correctly, you are a registered trust as on 1/4/21. You already had an ATG. You by mistake you have taken a provisional registration under ATG 5 subclause 4. Then you have to surrender. You will have to file a form 10A with subsection 1 because 12 ATG 5 subsection 1 applies to you, and you have to surrender the form 10AC online, and you will be granted a registration for 5 years. Ankush says we have got provisional on 31st March. So the due date for filing of final registration on or before becomes 30th of June 24. Please confirm. However, Ankur, in your case, you have, if that is the case, if you have not commenced your activities, if you have commenced your activities, then anytime once you commence your activities, within 6 months, you have to file a form 10EB and then go for registration. So you need not wait for 2.5 years in those scenarios. Sir, we applied for a registration under the old portal and were erroneously allotted provisional registered. Later, department issued saying circular that these were final. Do you need to do any additional filing in those cases? In those cases, you have a circular number 11 of 2022 where they have said that while you applied for the you are a trust which having a valid 12AA and you have to get a regular registration done for 5 years. However, the form 10AC which came in, it came with an order at the bottom, order for provisional registration, which was a technical glitch. They have accepted the technical glitch by circular number 11 of 2022 of dated February 22. And they have said that this order for provisional registration should be read as order for registration. It will be valid for 5 years. I am aware in some cases department has issued scrutiny notices. And in fact, we had received one scrutiny notice this year where they had raised show cause notice, even issued show cause notices to us in crores of rupees. But we managed to get it nullified and the nil demand came in. So white circular number 11, you need not do anything further. If I'm already running a trust and started the activities, can I apply for direct final instead of provisional? Yes, you can by way of 12 subclause 1, subclause AC 6B, provided you are applying after 1/4/1/10/23 because that section was introduced, substituted with the effect from 1/10/23. Sir, please highlight on anonymous donations. Honestly, really, anonymous donations is a separate activity itself, a separate, but I will spend 1 minute since you have mentioned. Now that 17AA is specified and it asks you to maintain the documents when you collect money. If you do not maintain those documents, it will be termed as anonymous donations. Furthermore, you cannot collect cash donations in cash about 2,000 rupees without those documents. If you meant they will further be termed as anonymous donations, you are allowed to have maximum of anonymous donations of 5% of your total receipts or 1 lakh rupees, whichever is higher, that will not be subject to tax. However, if you have any amounts as anonymous donations which exceeds 5% of your total receipts or 1 lakh rupees, whichever is higher, then the balance amount will be taxed at 30% plus surcharge plus cess. Prasad sir, religious trust form 3 years back not applied for 10A. Where are filing return in ITR 5? Can I file now? Sir, religious trusts are not to be registered under 12AB ATG because they cannot claim the benefits under section under 11.1, and therefore they will always be an AOP, and you have to file ITR 5 only. You cannot file an ITR 7 in those cases. So, my question was that 12A registration was rejected and we are in appeal against ITT. Can I apply for final registration under ATG even if the 12A registration was rejected and in appeal before IT? Sir, in your case, I have already replied. If you were in existence on 1421 and you had taken a provisional registration or your application is rejected because on those grounds, you may apply fresh. Or if you were a trust which is formed after 1421, you went for provisional registration, you may apply for provisional registration under 12 subclause 1, AC subclause 4, 6B. Even if you've gone to an ITAT against the order before 30th of June, you may apply. If you get an order certificate, you may withdraw the appeal. We have commenced your activities. Gitesh, my institution is one totally exempt under AB, so also registered, and is it advisable to register under 12AB? After 1421, you are allowed only to so earlier you were allowed to, if you were an educational medical relief, you could opt for dual registration under 2023C as well as under 12AB. After 1421, this is stopped. So you either have to be registered under 12AB or under 2023C. You can opt to elect any of one of them, not dual. So you would not be given double registrations. We are already having 12 by mistake. While renewal of 12AA, we did a mistake of provisional. What is consequences and what is the remedy for? Sir, I've already covered this. Circular number 7 helps you out. Sir, we are trust registered under subclause 6 of subsection of Form 22 to 26. On first provision of section. No, we are a trust registered under subclause 6 of clause AC of from AY 22 to AY 26. And clause 4 of cell. So your ATG was due for renewal in AY 23-24. What to do? You have to. So if you've not gone for a renewal, you have to renew. If you have to go convert your provisional registration. Since you have a provisional under 12AB, you have a provisional registration for 5 years, then nothing more is to be done. But your ATG will have to be renewed. Medical institution is collecting fee at commercial rate and selling medicines. And can it get registered under 1012 or 1023C? Sir, there are judgments which will come to your benefit. So whether to get registered or not is the commercial call that you will have to take, but you have judgments which are in your favor. One of my clients wants to start a school under a charitable institution. Do we need to file some other forms or taking registration of Form 10 is also to avail ATG? Sir, for registrations, as I've been saying, your Form 10A is to be filed, not Form 10AB. 10AB is to be filed for conversion from provisional registration to final registration when you start your activity. Because I think I have answered your query if I have. I think I have answered all the queries. So if there is any further doubts, I'm ready to answer. At this point of time, it shows me 6:32. So I hopefully have managed to answer the queries well in time. So to that extent, really thankful to Taxmann for allowing me to share my views, and really thankful to all the participants for giving me your time so that we could take care of this, and really, really blessed to get an opportunity from Taxmann as well as share our knowledge with all of you. And obviously, the precious gift that you've given us is your time. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, I'm still ready to answer your questions. And obviously, my coordinates are with you all. So if you need any help, I'm more than available for help any point of time. Vinay cities is a charitable trust can be rejected in due to non-compliance, then as per latest, can they reapply for renewal? If your non-compliance is on documentation, then probably you can go for renewal. If there is some other reason, then we'll have to take it on a case-to-case basis, Vinayji. Dinesh Kumar, Form 10 event should be filed for registration and entity of existing trust. Sir, 10A and 10AB are applicable for no matter whether you want to take 1023C registration or a 12AB registration or an ATG registration or 35(1) registration. Only the codes will keep on changing depending on the type of registration you want to take, whether you want to take for a 12AB or you want to take for an ATG or you want to take for a 1023C or a 80G, 35(1). The forms are same for all those cases. Yes. Anybody from Taxman? I think I am done. If you, if the participants don't have any further question, then I think I I am done. So really thankful. Manish Jaju says a 10A registration with years to be considered drop down AY22 registration. The circular form 10 asset and life statement is not allowing to enter details of previous year. Sir, you may put in the details as I've been saying you, whichever year it allows you to select, please select that. I know this challenge is there in case of an ATG application. It is not there in the case of a 1023C or a 12AB. But as I said, in the interactive meeting as well as with the meetings with the CID, they're saying you file it, we will look at it, we will have a lenient view on that aspect. Yes. Admin says donations collected by Gaushalas through donation boxes kept at various shops will be anonymous donations. Sir, the challenge over here is that, in fact, in I know in partly religious, partly charitable trust, some advisors have been advising that in the boxes you should mention this is towards corpus donations, or no boxes are kept. In both those cases, the challenge is there have been judgments which say that this cannot be a corpus donation, it has to be a voluntary contribution, and therefore the section 11(1) gets triggered. That is one challenge. Secondly, if you it will be treated as an anonymous donations because you do not have you are hit by 17 rule 17AA. Manish says, Sir, trust registered clause 6 of first provision to subsect or AY20 which is due for renewal. What is the time limit for it? Sir, your time limit was already there for up. You were supposed to renew it by March 23 if you've not commenced your activity. So you may go under the circular number 7 to do it. I can see two people raising their hands. I think obviously I've tried to answer their queries. So if not,